You may already know that recently the central government has announced Bharatratna, India's highest civilian honor, to five recipients: Karpuri Thakur, Shri Lalkrishnaadvani, Shri Narasimharao, Chaudhary Charan Singh, and M.S. Swaminathan. This is the highest number of Bharat Ratnas ever conferred in a single year. While four of them will receive the honor posthumously, Advaniji, who is now 96, is the sole living recipient. Each of them are commendable and have provided their invaluable services to the nation in diverse areas. And today we will try to attempt to study two of the major personalities who are relevant even in today's political discourses. When Narasimha Rao took office as Prime Minister in 1991, the nation was dealing with a number of extremely difficult issues. But the biggest problem we were facing was the economic crisis. Under him was the Finance Minister Sri Manmohan Singh. So Rao's and Singh's initiation into the government was a trial by fire. In the first few weeks of taking office, no other government was ever faced with as politically challenging choices like they did. But the manner in which Narasimha Rao steered India from the brink of an upcoming economic collapse to safety earned him the title he truly deserved, the father of India's economic reforms. Now let me explain how difficult the situation was. In 1991, we were facing a worst economic crisis and were in the danger of a sovereign default. To add to it, the Gulf War in the 1990s caused oil prices to rise sharply. Remittances from Indian employees working abroad also fell, and this resulted in a significant decrease in India's foreign exchange reserves, which stood at less than $6 billion, only enough for 2 weeks of country's imports. The deteriorating fiscal deficit situation and the growing foreign debt levels only made the matters worse. The government's problems were also intensified by a current account deficit of 2.5% of GDP and a fiscal deficit of 8% of the GDP. And as if that wasn't enough, double-digit inflation added to the difficulties faced by average person. The immediate priority for Rao's government was to avoid defaulting on foreign loans, an embarrassment that India had managed to avoid till then. Sri Narasimha Rao, who was a distinguished scholar and as distinguished a statesman, swiftly implemented two very significant and critical reforms, which set India not only on the track of growth but also on global integration. Thanks to him and his policies, we can now not only imagine but set the target of becoming the third largest economy. Here are a few risky but effective policies which he undertook, which, if had backfired, could have turned him into a worst ever Prime Minister. But instead, he used those policies in a way which, from a situation of an economic collapse, directed our nation in becoming the fifth largest economy that we are today. Let us look at the policies that he implemented. A currency is said to be devalued when a country officially lowers the rate of its currency in comparison to foreign currency. It means importers need more local currency to make purchases, while exporters get more local currency when they export. This helps as Indians have to spend more for imports, resulting in reduced imports, and it increases exports as other countries have to spend less to make purchases from India, which ultimately reduces the trade deficits. Narasimha Rao yet again proved his far-sightedness by making the transition more easier for all stakeholders by undertaking the devaluation in two phases. The government, along with the Reserve Bank of India, undertook a two-step devaluation of the rupee. On July 1st, 1991, it was devalued by approximately 9%, and 2 days later, it was devalued by additional 11%. The goal behind this was making Indian exports more competitive. Next on Narasimha Rao's priority was strengthening India's foreign reserves. Between July 4 to 18, the central bank pledged India's gold holdings with the Bank of England in four allotments. This raised about 400 million. Prior to this, during the national elections, the State Bank of India sold 20 tons of gold to the Union Bank of Switzerland, which raised around 200 million. Earlier in the same year, the government had also received emergency loans totaling about $2 billion in two allotted installments from the IMF. As part of its efforts to boost exports, the government announced a new trade policy that sought to bring a change in the licensing process. It also focused on promoting exports and removing import controls. The government also proposed limiting tariff rates to more than 150%, while also lowering rates across the board, lowering excise duties and doing away with the export subsidies. The government unveiled a remarkable industrial policy in the 1991 financial budget. It called for abandoning the license Raj system and making significant changes on how India handled its industries and foreign investments. The new policy played an important role in removing numerous obstacles that prevented the growth of our industries. The government implemented the idea of tax deduction at source for certain transactions, such as bank deposits, and raised the corporate tax rates by 5 percentage points to 45% in order to address the growing fiscal deficit. I mean, we complain about the current tax rates, and we should, but for the people living through those days, today's tax rates would sound like a dream. The policy also eliminated the sugar subsidy and raised the cost of petrol, fertilizer, and cooking gas cylinders. It opened up mutual funds to private sector and relaxed rules for investment by non-residents. A scheme for people to declare unaccounted wealth was also announced, and people were given immunity from persecution and from the burden of interest and penalty. And the push for reforms didn't stop there. It continued even after the budget. Over the next 8 months, the government announced many steps to continue the reforms momentum and pull India out of the crisis. This included a second trade policy package to boost exports and a package for developing small firms. A committee led by former RBI Governor M. Narasimhan was also announced by the government to suggest changes to the financial sector. Subsequently, another committee headed by renowned public financial economist Raja Chelaya was also formed for recommending tax reforms. It has been precisely 30 years since the historic event that saved India from a severe economic crisis and set the country on a path of rapid economic growth. There couldn't have been a more appropriate timing to confer him the bharatratna for putting India's economy on track for becoming the fastest growing economy on its way to become the third largest in the world by 2030. Narasimharao's reforms were often referred to as the LPG model, which were centered on three elements: globalization, privatization, and liberalization. He liberalized the Indian economy by abolishing the license Raj, which was a complex web of licenses, rules, and other barriers that one had to jump through in order to set up businesses. Entrepreneurs had to receive approval from as many as 80 different agencies before they were granted licenses. Eliminating the license Raj meant that without a license of any kind, an entrepreneur could now start any industry. Privatization policy brought in banking reforms, opened the reserve sector for private players. PSU shares were allowed to be sold to private entities. Import duties on goods was reduced. Indian economy was opened up for international trade and foreign investment. And last but definitely not the least, the Indian rupee was made partially convertible. And as anticipated, these actions led to a period of extremely rapid economic growth by promoting entrepreneurship, increasing competition, and bringing in large amounts of foreign capital, resulting in a significant boost in industrial output, technological advancements in all sectors, and what every citizen expects from its government: an improved standard of living. Coming back again to yet another Bharat Ratna awardee who till date continues to influence India's political landscape is Sri lalkrishnaadvani.
अदालत का फैसला क्यों नहीं मानते? अदालत क्या इस बात का फैसला करेगी कि यहां पर राम का जन्म हुआ था कि नहीं हुआ था? आपसे तो इतनी आशा है, बीच में मत पड़ो, रास्ते में मत आओ, क्योंकि ये जो रथ है, लोक रथ है, जनता का रथ है, जो सोमनाथ से चला है और जिसने मन में संकल्प किया हुआ है कि 30 अक्टूबर को वहां पर पहुंच करके कार सेवा करेंगे और मंदिर वहीं बनाएंगे, उसको कौन रोकेगा?
Mandir Wahibanayenge, an iconic statement which was destined to change the course of Indian politics. The man behind the slogan, which will live on as a representation of a riveting phase in the consciousness of modern India, needs no introduction. Today we'll attempt to bring to you an assessment of Advaniji's role in the entire story. Recently, lalkrishnaadvaniji was conferred with the bharatratna, the highest civilian award of India, raising quite a storm, with the opposition alleging that the man who is being conferred with the award is responsible for destroying the social fabric of the country and leading it to destruction by creating dangerous divisions within the society and polarizing India on religious lines. But the center argues that Advaniji was being conferred with the award for his notable career in public service, his lasting legacy, and lifelong dedication to the nation. And I'm sure that most of us will agree that he was a brilliant politician and a committed leader, and that his contribution in awakening the Indian civilizational consciousness through his Rath Yatra is critical and invaluable. Although most of the viewers from my generation may not really be aware of his contributions and his untiring efforts by which he sowed the seeds of today's one of the most successful political parties, especially when the nation was going through its worst times in the late 1980s. With relentless determination and enthusiasm, L.K. Advaniji committed himself to the cause of building the Bharatiya Janata Party. A monumental task lay ahead of him of building a virtually non-existent political party, brick by brick, to one such political party who could be the kingmaker in forming the government. And he did it in the 1989 elections by winning 85 seats from the 225 constituencies from which the BJP had contested. Meanwhile, in the same elections, Congress had crashed from 403 to disgraceful 196 seats. And the Janata Dal, with 139 seats along with the BJP, managed to form the government. It was because of Shri L.K. Advani that BJP rose like a phoenix, resurrecting itself from the ashes of 1984 elections when it won only 2 seats. And this was the time when Congress was appealing and catering to both Muslims and Hindus, shifting goalposts and playing to the gallery as and when required. We all know how the then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi pandered to the Muslims to the extent that he overturned the Supreme Court verdict in 1985. And yes, I am talking about the Shahbano case. This caused a massive uproar from the Hindu community. And fearing severe backlash, Rajiv immediately decided to open the locks of Babri to calm the Hindus and allowed the construction of a pavilion on what was called the Vivadit Dhacha. This was soon followed by Rajiv Gandhi's Bofors scam, which shook the entire nation. At the same time, Rajiv Gandhi's tenure had been tainted. He was already facing public scrutiny for Bhopal gas disaster, Shahbano case, the civil war between the LTTE and the Sri Lankan government, and the much infamous Bofors scam. The fall of Congress government was inevitable. The nation was fuming with anger and there was political instability. The once invincible Indian National Congress was undergoing its worst period since independence. And the point that we should note here is that Rajiv Gandhi had swept the elections with 403 seats owing to the sympathy factor following Indira Gandhi's assassination that very year. After Rajiv Gandhi took power, he appointed VP Singh as finance minister. And after assuming his post, VP Singh started his crackdown on corruption. He allegedly began investigation into various defense procurements, including allegations of bribes and payoff in the Swedish Bofors gun purchase. Not surprisingly, this resulted in VP Singh being expelled from the Congress party. So he aligned with other Congress dissenters and founded his own political party, the Jan Morcha, and later aligned it with Janata Dal. After Congress defeat in 1989 elections, VP Singh formed a coalition government along with the DMK, Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, TDP, Telugu Desam Party, and AGP, Assam Gana Parishad, which was called the National Front. Meanwhile, Advaniji recruited and brought into limelight leaders like Murli Manohar Joshi, Sheshadri Chari, Arun Jaitley, Sushma Swaraj, Venkaiah Naidu, Pramod Mahajan, Rajnath Singh, Uma Bharti, Kalyan Singh, and some others from the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh and the Vishwa Hindu Parishad under Shri Ashok Singhal, who had conceptualized the Ram Janmabhoomi movement and had played a major role in mobilizing the sadhus and Hindu groups nationwide. But the most mentionable of the entire lot were Narendra Modi and Amit Shah. This was the first time when the word Hindutva was included in BJP's election manifesto. It was around in 1989 under lalkrishnaadvani, who was then the president of Bharatiya Janata Party, that the BJP adopted the Ayodhya movement, with BJP, RSS and the Vishwa Hindu Parishad all working together for the first time under Vajpayee's pragmatic leadership. These leaders brought together men of religion, volunteers, dedicated and proud Hindus from almost all over India, cutting across all dividing barriers of caste, creed and region. Never before had India come together in such a manner since independence. It was under Advaniji that BJP, with its right-wing Hindutva ideology, took a firm and unshakable center stage in India's politics, inflicting a massive blow to the Indian National Congress, which had a stable and unchallenged hold on India's politics and was the only biggest national priority since independence. With BJP's Ram Temple movement, BJP's graph started rising, but its popularity was only limited to what is called the Hindi heartland, the Hindi-speaking regions of India. With this, party was able to form the government for the first time, which lasted only 13 days, and again for 13 months in 1998, when they lost by a single vote in the Lok Sabha. It was Advaniji's hardline Hindutva politics which paid rich electoral dividends in 1989 elections, when BJP won 85 Lok Sabha seats. And it was also due to Advaniji's Ram Rath Yatra that BJP continued to grow in strength. And the day finally came when they won 120 seats in 1991 general elections. And the reason? It was during this time of deep political crisis in 1990 that Advaniji embarked on the Ram Rath Yatra from Somnath in Gujarat to Ayodhya in UP. It was with this Ram Rath Yatra that BJP's Hindutva ideology was actively and aggressively unleashed. Advaniji left the entire nation spellbound with his organizational skills, with which he had strategized and planned the entire program to ensure maximum leverage to his party, all the while ensuring that the yatra connected with all social segments of the society. Even the media was shocked by the massive response that the yatra had gained, which also laid a solid foundation for the party and made it an invincible political force overnight. And it shouldn't be an exaggeration to say that when the Ram Pratishtha ceremony was conducted in Ayodhya, dreams and aspirations of millions of Hindus, not only across India but across the globe, were finally realized. And it was the initiative and untiring efforts of this very man that the vision was brought to reality. The Hindu conscience, which has been colonized and oppressed for long, has finally found its voice and its confidence to fearlessly and assertively practice its faith and to celebrate its culture. India is currently in an era which is witnessing the reawakening of pride in our dharma, our civilization, and our faith, which is not only the most oldest but the most evolved one ever to be found in the human history. It would be nothing short of short-sightedness to accuse Advaniji of divisive politics, because what began in 1990 with just a handful of nationalists by his side has today become a roaring stream of nationalistic spirit and has united the Hindus like never before. As claimed by the BJP, Advaniji's Ram Rath Yatra was not just centered around the Ram Mandir or the Babri Masjid dispute. Its aim was to raise three very basic but crucial questions. First, why only one section of the society is pandered over secularism, while a free hand is given to other so-called minorities? Second, can national integration be achieved by constantly pandering to a certain community? And third, cannot the government reject the cult of minoritism? The tragic and dreadful partition of India and Pakistan in 1947 laid the foundation for Hindu-Muslim animosity. It's not that the animosity has developed only recently. We have been witnesses to the hostility ever since independence. And as if that wasn't enough, the constant appeasement of minorities by granting them policy favors one after the other without caring of unforeseen side effects were the main reasons for fragmentation of India among religious lines. So the Ayodhya Ram Mandir verdict by the Supreme Court in favor of Hindus marked an era-defining moment in Indian history, and the decades-long battle on Ram Mandir and Babri Masjid finally came to an end. That's all from my side. And if you like our content, don't forget to like or comment, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.